Okay, not sure about the lag. Not sure. I'm just going to talk here until I get some confirmation messages and see what happens. Hopefully everything is running. I'm trying to run it right from the PowerPoint. Can we do a quick audio and visual check? Speech to text works just about as good as YouTube does sometimes. Okay, can we do an audio and visual check? Are you able to see me and hear me, and is anybody here? Oh, good. I made some settings. I've changed the camera angle a little bit. And is the sound crackling at all? You getting any nasty feedback? And do we have people here? Are there people in attendance? Question mark. Okay. Okay, that's good. Are there people in attendance? Question mark. We've got this great lag thing going on here. Okay. Well, I'm just going to go. You were able to connect using the link. You were able to connect using the link. Is that correct? Question mark. Okay, I'm gonna just check over here just to make sure. Okay, yeah, it just has you and I right now. Well, I'm gonna go for it anyway. Let me see if I have any messages on Facebook. And I'm really battling the cat this morning. I battled the cat all night. Okay, I don't see any messages. Let me go to the group and see what's happening there, if anything. Okay, nothing new there. Let me come back over here. Problem is, this all gets recorded and editing changes things, so it appears. So I don't know if editing even matters. Okay, let me see if I've got any messages from you, but I'm just going to go ahead with this. Okay, all right, thank you. Yes, the link is on the channel. Okay, well, I'm just going to pretend like there are people here. So we'll just see what happens as things unfold. Okay. So, welcome to lesson number 4. And I asked kind of an interesting question that I really hear quite often. And they think that there's this disconnect between the stock market and an individual person, your average everyday American or average everyday investor, that there's something secret that the people on Wall Street seem to know that the average American or average investor does not know. And this leads people to think that the stock market is rigged, that the individual investor or trader is not able to have the same advantages as somebody who's in New York or on the stock exchange, or that is very wealthy or has some kind of inside information that we, the people, don't have. So I'm going to address that issue today. So believing the markets are rigged, that you are at a disadvantage even before you start. Now, one thing that you will learn is that most people that try to become traders or even investors, if they do it on their own, most people fail at that. And as I go through these lessons, you'll see that the stock market is not necessarily complicated. You are trying to buy low and sell high, or you're trying to sell high and buy low, or you're going sideways, whatever strategy you implement, but that there's some kind of a secret. And I'll pretty much just be using one slide today, and I ask a series of questions, and then I provide my perspective on those answers for you. So is the stock market rigged? Is there something, is there an even playing field, is really what I'm getting at. Do we, as individual investors or traders, why is it that 90% or 95%, I've seen 80%, it depends on what article you read or what source you cite, why do most people fail at this? And I'll address this as well. So instead of getting into the market and really learning it and developing a skill, we settle for the easy way. And is that the best way? Well, if you have a lot of time to be able to let your investments run for a period of time, yeah, that could be a good way for you. But if you want to enhance your returns, if you want to avoid being really impacted if we have a market crash or if things go wrong, then what can you do? Are there things that you can do to protect yourself before those things even happen, or even avoid those situations altogether? And that's part of the program, is that yes, I have a real big yes to that answer. Now, there's a lot of books that you'll read. There are people that you will talk to that say that what I'm teaching you is not wisdom, is not the right way to do things. I disagree with that. With a little extra work, with a little extra time and dedication, I firmly believe that where a lot of people may be set with lower, they may be happy or pleased with a lower return on their investments, but yet they're fully exposed if something goes wrong. And even that lower return is in danger of going away during really difficult times. So if you can put a little extra effort or energy into what you're doing, then you can not only get better returns on what you're trying to do, but you can also avoid a lot of the dangers or a lot of the bad things that can happen. And it doesn't require a lot of extra work, but it does require some extra work. And people aren't always willing to do that. So basically, look at it this way. If you could make a 7 to 10% annual return, that's usually what the S&P 500 does just by itself. If you just put money into the S&P 500 and then over the long term, you will average about 7 to 10% a year. And that's not too bad. But what if you could take that same period of time and get maybe 15, 20, 30, 40%? And I'm not trying to sell empty dreams. I'm just saying with a little bit more effort, would you be happy with greater returns? Now, there's another side to that. In chasing those greater returns, you might make mistakes. And what you thought would be a greater return ends up being a loss. And that's where people get into trouble. That's where people think that the market is rigged, that there's some kind of inside information that we need to know in order to make these things work. And I'm just going to check things here just to see. Okay, no messages so far. So the first question that we might ask is, here's a problem that we have, that there's some mystical secret to successful investing, and me as an average everyday investor, I can't ever find out what that is. And that's a very common attitude that people have, that's why there's all these seminars and all these books and all these workshops and things that you can go to and pay an awful lot of money to go to. That's why I go to these webinars. These people, a lot of them, I would say 98% of them, they're just trying to sell you a product. They're trying to sell you some magic answer. And I've been to all of these things. I've read all of these books. And unfortunately, there's a small percentage, and I include myself in that small percentage, of people that really want to teach you, that really want to give you good, solid information that you can take. But the first thing and use that to get greater returns. But the first thing that you're going to learn is there is no holy grail when it comes to the markets. There's no secret answer. Everybody is trying to find it, and a lot of people say that they've found it, and a lot of these emails that you get and webinars that you may attend, or even seminars, if we're ever able to do those again, they're going to make all these really interesting promises to you and require an awful lot of money from you, but yet when it comes time for that to actually perform, you realize, okay, this isn't what I thought it was. It's not delivering what they led me to believe. I'm not saying they're lying to you, because they're really crafty about how they do things. But you let yourself believe that you were going to have this great success listening to somebody else, instead of taking skills and developing them yourself and then using those to enjoy the rewards when you're right, but yet take responsibility when you're wrong. And that's a huge part of what I do when I teach people how to do this. So thinking that there's some algorithm, there's some, a lot of the quants, if you've ever heard of that, quantitative analysis, where on any given day, there's about 60 to 80% of the volume that you see is computer driven. That isn't even people that are doing that. Those are computers that are set up so that when certain things happen, you buy. And then when other things happen, you sell. And a lot of the trading that we see on any given day isn't even really real people. It's virtual. It's all computer driven. Because everybody is in search of this great answer, this holy grail. And there have been times when people have found a good answer, but that has led to success. And one of the things that you'll hear me say is, we follow the smart money. Well, there's also big money out there as well, where people are trading huge amounts, and we can track those things. And the old saying is, how do you know if an elephant has gone through your living room? It leaves tracks, okay? The same thing is true. When these big people that have billions of dollars, whether they're trading syndicates or pension funds or banks or really large institutional investors, when they do things, we can see that happening. And then we try to figure out, okay, some big volume just went through. Was that smart money or was that dumb money? And sometimes that can be hard to tell. And that's what I spend a lot of time really analyzing, because they think they've found this magical answer. Well, you have all these people that think they've found answers, and they tend to all be executed at the same time. And so we can see that, and we can take advantage of that, and we can watch it, and then we can anticipate that in the future. But basically, If there was some kind of a secret to the market, it would have been discovered a long time ago. The markets have been around for hundreds of years. The idea of trading and going back and forth has existed pretty much since people have existed. We have the barter system where I'll help you build your barn if you let me milk your cow once a day or twice a week or something. So you're exchanging one thing for another thing. Well, that's really what's happening in the stock market. You have ownership, or you want ownership in a company, and you're exchanging your money for the ownership of that company. And then at some point, after you have some ownership in that company, you may want to sell it back. And there's an exchange that goes on. And we know it more in dollars and cents terms now, where it used to be more of, I'll trade you something that I'm good at for something that you're good at. And we still see that today, but it's not as prevalent as it used to be. But people have spent so much time studying the stock market. There have been thick books. There have been people with doctorate degrees and master's degrees, and they've really analyzed these things for a long time, and they think they've found an answer. And even for a period of time, it may look like they have found an answer. But since they become successful and then everybody goes to them, we can see what they're doing. And then once everybody starts to do the same thing, that's when things break down at that point. And that's why you'll hear of a thing called hedge funds, which I explain in the course what they are. But basically, they're a big group of, it's like a mutual fund where everybody pools their money together. And then you have this rock star manager who has figured out the secrets to the market. And so then they get billions of dollars that they're now managing. Well, once they get in and once they get out, we can see that. And that tends to break down the edge that they thought that they had. So, and I'll be addressing that as well in this lesson. But just know that there is no secret. When I first started out in the early to mid 90s, learning about the stock market, I was looking for the secret. And I kept thinking I found it. I tried to develop it myself. I would go to seminars. I would read books. I would talk to people that seemed to think they had the answer, only to have that break down at some point and really come back. And you will run across a lot of people that think, yep, I got it all figured out. Just follow what I do. Pay me $2,000 a month and I will tell you what to do. Only to find out that they really don't know what they're doing, or what worked in the past is not working now. So we have to really be careful of those things. When it comes to stock market education, there are a lot of charlatans out there. It's almost on par with the used car salesman. And there's a real sleaze factor in what's going on. And there's a lot of garbage that's being promoted. And so I'm trying to come along and be different and teach people real information that they can really use, again, for developing skills. And I take a whole different approach to that. Okay, so another thing is I'm a small fish in the middle of the ocean. The rules are not fair for the little guy. Now, in some countries, like in China, and other Russia and countries that they have a stock market, but it's not as developed. That's true. Where there's inside information. Now, some of you may be familiar with the name Martha Stewart, and she got caught. She was very famous in America, written books, had TV shows, kind of homemaker, cooking, decorating type of thing. Well, a few years back, she went to jail. And that was for insider trading. And she didn't really get in trouble for insider trading. What she got in trouble for was when the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission that oversees the stock market, when they went to ask her, did you act on any inside information? She said no. Well, that was a lie. And that's what she went to jail for. It's just like with Bill Clinton when they tried to impeach him. And I can't believe there's impeachment news going on as I record this. And I'm not really paying attention to what's going on in the news right now, so I don't know a lot about that. But when Bill Clinton was he was impeached by the House, and he was almost then confirmed by the Senate, it wasn't for messing around with Monica Lewinsky. It was for when the grand jury came and asked him a question, he lied about it. That's what got him into trouble. And so over the years, since our stock market is more mature in America, we've had a chance to really level the playing field so that the information that you and I get is the same information that the big institutions get. And we're all getting that information at the same time. Now, you may have to dig for it, and it may be a little harder to find if you're the average everyday investor, but that information is available. So that the information that we're acting on is the same information that the big institutions are acting on. And they take that very serious if the rules are broken. If you want to read an interesting book sometime, it's called Den of Thieves. And it's about Michael Milken and how he did a lot of insider trading. He went to prison for that. And a lot of people have gone to prison over the years. That's a very serious thing. Just to give you an example. Let's say that I am the owner of a publicly traded company. And I'm going to give you an example of insider trading. And I go to the golf course one day. I love to golf. And I meet you. And maybe we're friends. Or maybe we're just acquaintances. And we're out on the golf course. And we're putting. We're on the third green and we're putting out. And we're just kind of chit-chatting back and forth. And I say, oh, I have this company, and next week the regulatory committee is going to say, excuse me, I need a little drink of water here. The regulatory committee that's, let's say we have a drug company, the tests are going to be very favorable. And our stock, which is $10 a share right now, is going to go to $25 a share overnight once this news hits the market. And so we get done golfing, and I say, have a good day. And this person, you, that I'm talking to, you go home and you immediately buy a bunch of shares in my company. Well, what we just did is illegal. For me to give you information that is not public knowledge, that's against the rules. And I can get into a lot of trouble for that, and you could get into a lot of trouble for that. If you ever want to see the all-time great movie about that, it's Wall Street, the first Wall Street, with Charlie Sheen before he went crazy. It was made back in the late 90s, I believe. And at the end of the movie, I don't want to ruin it for you, but it's an old movie that you probably have already seen. Both himself and Gordon Gekko end up going to prison. Why did they go to prison? It's for insider trading. It's about Blue Star Airlines, if I remember right. That's what got them into trouble. It wasn't that they were swindling people or doing anything else. It's that they were acting on information that the public didn't have access to. And so they've really worked hard. This is one of the things that's been good about the U.S. government over the years, is that they've really worked hard to make it a level playing field for everybody that's involved in the stock market, so that we're all going with the same information at the same time. So the U.S. stock market has evolved and matured into the most level, free market playing field in existence. Yes, you can be part of the stock market in Russia or China or in Germany or in England. Name a country, Japan. Okay, I'm not getting any messages. I hope I'm still connected here. I've noticed that there's a direct correlation between having internet connectivity and paying your bill. And when I got ready to get things going for this broadcast, I didn't have any internet. So I'm hoping that everything is back to normal now. But that's why I say the US stock market is the best, because it's the most fair, or the fairest stock market on the globe. And so far, with all the messing around that's going on in America, where things are just going crazy with the government, the stock market has stayed pretty sane, and that's been more guarded. You'll hear me talk a lot about this at various times, where the Wall Street tends to consider most of what goes on in Washington, D.C. as theater. They're just a bunch of clowns. If you see all this stuff going on in the government, but yet the stock market's either unchanged or actually going up or sideways, because the big people on Wall Street, they really don't pay attention to the day-to-day news in our government. It really doesn't affect them. That has changed over the last 4 years, because we've had a president who has done things, who's a businessman, and so he has done things that can have either a short-term negative impact, like with the tariffs on China, or it can have a real positive impact where companies were really allowed much more advantages to bring their money back to America, and that was getting pumped into the economy, and we were seeing all kinds of people hired. And so that's why we saw this really healthy stock market over the last 4 years or so. And so it's more of a long-term approach. It's more what laws are on the books, not necessarily the day-to-day things that happen. Now, there are exceptions. For example, on the day that President Kennedy was assassinated, there started to become rumors in the New York Stock Exchange just within a minute or two after that happened, and the market started to go down, and then they ended up closing the stock market. But that's kind of a different situation. And really, the people that we need to pay attention to are members of what's called the Federal Reserve. And they are very powerful people, and I talk about them in my courses and explain just how important they are. And then there are times when they give speeches or when they do things that we really need to pay attention to. But just know that the stock market, we're all playing on the same field when it comes to the U.S. stock market. Then another interesting thing is the fat cats, that we like to call them, on Wall Street. They can do things that I can't do. Remember who our competition is as an investor or even as a trader. We're dealing with some of the smartest people on the planet. There are rocket scientists who are trying to figure out how the stock market works using very powerful computers, and very smart people that are designing some really powerful programs. And they're the big money, and they have virtually unlimited money available to them. And that's our competition. Well, instead of competing against them, which is what a lot of people teach, let's do what they're doing. Let's just figure out what they're doing and then jump on board. And I spend a lot of time just watching what's happening. Now, it's a little bit hard to get that right at all times, because on one hand, we have big money, like the hedge funds and the institutions and the pension funds that are trading billions of dollars at any given time. But just because it's big money does not necessarily mean it's smart money. And I put hedge funds in that category, and I talk about hedge funds in my courses. But like I said earlier, we can see what they're doing. We see these trades coming through, and that's why I watch the market during the day all the time, to get a feel for what's happening. And I'm always looking at, okay, Let's look at these different big institutions. Did they get in? Did they get out? And we would think that they can do all kinds of things that we can't do. Well, actually, this works to our favor, because that elephant that walks through your living room that leaves tracks, we don't leave tracks. We can get into positions and get out of positions as a small investor pretty much unnoticed. We can be more stealthy with how we're doing things. So there are things that we can do, or that you can do, that the fat cats on Wall Street can't do. When they want to get into any stock that's in the S&P 500, let's say Microsoft or Apple or Google, the names that you know, they don't just get in all at once. They have to do this over a period of time, because it would just freak out the markets. And for any time you want to buy something, there has to be a seller on the other end. And anytime you want to sell something, there has to be a buyer on the other end. And if somebody goes to unload a whole bunch of stock all at once, there's not going to be the buyers there on the other side of that transaction. So they have to do this over a period of time. You'll see in movies, or you'll read in books, where the big, powerful money, they have to start buying shares of this company, and it might take them months to build up a system. And when they decide to get out, they're unwinding this slowly. They're not just doing it all at once. When we do see things start to unwind or sell all at once, that's usually when we have a market crash. And everything is all happening at the same time, and people are going crazy, and they're jumping out of windows, and it just really can go nuts at that point. But to keep things more level, to keep prices more even, the big money, they have to do these things over a period of time. Where you and I, we can get in quickly and we can get out quickly because our position sizes are a lot smaller. Then there are people that know things that I don't know. And that is always true. You can apply that to anything. But we think that somebody has an advantage over us and that they're more likely to succeed than we are because of things that they know that we don't know. Well, that's what this whole course that I teach and this whole program that I have, that's what I'm trying to help you do, is to get you to the place where you know things that they don't know. And we can do things because we're more flexible. We can do things that they can't do. So technology then, because of the internet and computers, and I'm in a different country right now, and I'm getting the same information delivered to me that somebody that's on Wall Street in New York is getting delivered to them. And there's really no difference. Because of the rules, because of how we have to do things, information has to be made available to everybody at the same time. I can be in another country, I have my news sources, and I see those things coming in at the same time they do. So we have access to the same information at the same time. Then, another problem that you may have is, or think about, is that I'm a small-time investor with limited knowledge, money, and time. I don't know how to do this. I know the stock market's important, but I don't know anything about it. I know that I should be involved, but I don't really know what to do. These are really legitimate questions that have good answers. And that's what I say here. Information and even funding. You don't want to use your own money? There are alternatives out there. Okay, now most of you are going to just use your own money to do this. But there are people, if you really know what you're doing, you could start your own hedge fund, basically. Now, don't think of this as a business idea, because you have to have decades of experience before you're going to even want to walk into this. But there are some other programs where people will help put up the money for you, and you're not using your own money, and then say, okay, let's split the profits 50-50. I'll put up the money, you do all the work, and any profits that we have, you get half and I get half. There are those things available out there. Now, if you're brand new to the market and you don't know much about it, don't get too excited about that idea. Because if I was somebody and I had $10 million, I'm not just going to say, go try this out, give it a spin, knowing that that $10 million may vanish. Okay, these people don't have $10 million for no reason, unless they got it inherited and they just don't know what they're doing. But people that are successful in business, they're not just going to hand money to you and say, go give this a try and hope for the best. You need to really know what you're doing. But the thing that I want to stress is that there is efficient education available. There is good information available. There are computer programs that are available. There are good sources of information. There's a lot of bad information out there too, but we just need to know the difference between the good information and the bad information. And that's what I've dedicated my life to doing, is finding the good information. Not just the stuff that deals with your emotions, but looking down deep into things and seeing what's really going on, and then coming to a good conclusion based on that information. Okay, so then that concludes what I wanted to cover today. Let me check and just see. I don't know if there are any. Okay, I'm not seeing anything yet. All right. Everything seems to be okay. I'm not getting, are there any questions? What I see, or let me rephrase that. What you see right now is exactly what I see. Just a big blue screen with some words on it. So I'm not really able to see, as I do this broadcast, who, if anybody, is even watching. So, okay, I'm just waiting to see if I get any messages. But until I see some typing going on here. Okay, no problem. So as an added bonus, this is something that I prepared last summer. There is a link right below this video where you can watch my free workshop that helps to provide insight. And this is just my philosophy on life, some things I talk about, that these are things that maybe you've overlooked, or maybe the way I look at things gives you a new perspective on how to look at things, and can also entice you, or investors, to ask questions and then possibly even consider new alternatives. It's less than an hour. It's about 54 minutes long. And please, it's free. And there's not even a sales pitch at the end. So this is something that you can just go watch. And once it's done, it's done. And just give me some feedback. Let me know what you thought of that. So it's about 1 hour in length. So you're going to invest some time. And if you find me engaging, if you like to listen to me while I talk, then maybe it'll be an hour well spent. If you don't like the way I talk, or you don't find me very engaging, then you may not enjoy it that much. So let's talk. Again, I can be reached by email at john@spxinvesting.com. We can set up a time to have a video call with each other or an audio call. Because I'm not in the US right now, I don't have a regular phone. So I have to use some of the alternative ways of communicating. And what works best for me is either Skype, Zoom, or Messenger. If you belong to Facebook, you have access to Messenger, and we can set up a video call or an audio call. I've been asked which one is the best. It depends on what day it is and what time of day. There have been times when I've had really good success on Messenger, but then I might use something like Viber or WhatsApp, and the connection is really bad. So we might try Skype. That may or may not work. We might jump over to Zoom. That may or may not work. We may jump over to Messenger. That may or may not work. I have a really good connection when I pay the bill. And so I should be pretty good from my end as far as connectivity. Sometimes when you're connected to Wi-Fi, that can make the connection not as reliable or as fast. And then there's a million things in between myself and you that have to work just the right way for us to be able to talk. So just know that it doesn't always work the way we intend for it to work when we're trying to communicate. But email is a good way. In our Facebook group, anybody can join that group, and please invite your friends. Invitations will be sent out or can be requested as well. Okay, so I want to thank you for coming to this workshop or this lesson today. And here's my student again. I appreciate everyone taking the time to attend this lesson. If desired, please click the like or dislike button below if you haven't done that yet. Leave any comments. Those are really helpful to me. And getting the YouTube channel more noticed, that will really help. By subscribing, clicking a like, and then comments really help as well. So also consider subscribing to the channel or clicking on the bell to be notified when new videos are posted. Then the next broadcast will be lesson 5, and this will happen Wednesday evening Pacific time at 7 p.m. And that's, of course, 10 p.m. Eastern time if you're on the East Coast. So stay tuned. So 23 hours or so from now, I should be doing the next broadcast. And I don't see where there are any questions, so I'm going to go. Let me check one more time. Okay, it doesn't look like there's anything. So I want to thank all of you, all one of you. So you're probably watching this recording. And I hope you have a very pleasant evening, and I will look forward to talking with you next time. So take care.